We live in the most abundant time in history. There's more money in circulation, sloshing around than ever before.
How do we start changing our relationship with money to build true wealth and abundance?
If your relationship is money sucks, or if you're watching this thinking, no, explore where that's coming from, because money is important.
We often prioritize wealth before everything else.
People will do what's important to them. If it's not important to them, they won't do it. Your business is like a rubber ball. You drop it, it bounces back. But your family, the humans in your life, they're a glass ball. You drop them, they break. You can't put those back together.
What is your definition of wealth and success now compared to before?
Success and wealth for me is each day being able to wake up and decide how I'm going to spend my day.
What do you think causes so many men to break down mentally and physically on this journey to wealth?
Part of it is mental, and part of it is also physiological. From a physiological point of view,
what if you could build wealth and freedom while also enjoying your life? How to be a better father who's present with his family? Today we speak to Mark, who's actually been down the journey of grinding to achieve success. He had sleepless nights, panic attacks, and could have lost everything if he had continued down that path. But now he's making millions of dollars a year, loving his life and having balance between his family and his businesses. So if you want to learn how to build true wealth and success without sacrificing your health, happiness, or family, this episode will give you everything you need to win. So Mark, there's a lot going on. Like financially, it's getting harder and harder to survive. It's demonized now to be a stay-at-home mother, fatherhood, stress, pressure. We're going to cover all of that today, but I want to start with the topic you mentioned before we rolled, where somebody very famous in Australia, big podcast, talked about, you can share more of the context, something around, I want my wife to be able to do whatever she wants. If she wants to work, she can work. If she wants to stay at home, she can stay at home. And he was just destroyed by these women as if that's somehow toxic masculinity. Can you explain what happened with that?
Yeah, I told my fiance that I wouldn't touch this topic today.
Oh, okay,
we're
sorry.
like going straight into it. And look, I just want to start by saying both parties to this debate kind of make some really, really good points. And I think that both of them are coming from a good place. And for those who haven't caught up with it, it's I don't even know if I should mention their names, but you've probably seen it online. It's Chris Griffin.
Yeah.
His podcast, he mentioned something on his podcast about what he wants in a relationship, about the way he sees the world. And the girls from the Kick podcast, or I'm not sure, it's Laura Henshaw or someone like that.
Yeah.
Wasn't too excited to kind of see those comments, and was put him up on her platform and basically labeled what he was saying toxic masculinity.
What was he saying though?
I mean, look, the thing that struck me as odd is that was one man's kind of. He's 21, I think, as well. She's married. She's been around a little bit longer, so she is probably a little. It's safe to say she's a little bit more mature, right?
Yeah.
And this guy's 21, just starting a podcast, has a great following, newly coming into a big subscriber base, and he's out there just putting his thoughts out there, trying to work out where he fits in the world, what he wants in the world. And I thought it was a little bit unfair the way he was just kind of posted up as this figurehead of toxic masculinity. I don't think that he was necessarily coming from that place.
Yeah.
But whatever you believe or whoever you side with, I think the really big issue today, and you probably, working in the empowered man space can talk about this a lot more, but I think the biggest issue with the debate or the conversation, which I think is a good one, is that both men and women are confused about what their roles should be. These girls, I would say, are in the top 1% of go-getters out there. They would probably destroy me in marketing, in podcasting, in business, because they are great at what they do. And they've got loving partners that are kind of, I don't know the story, but I know that they're there supporting them and playing a really important active role in supporting their journey and them going out there building these careers and these followings and things like that. But that's not everyone.
Yeah.
Right? And there's so much nuance out there, and I think a lot of people watching this, and this is personal to me in a way because I have family members that are kind of going through this confusing, I don't know how to describe it, but going through this confusing situation where they feel pressure to be a great mum and to be a great entrepreneur and to have a great body and to have an intimate relationship with your partner and have a social media following.
Yeah.
And if these are the things that you've decided that you want to do, great, but be aware that that message is also confusing a lot of people, women and men, into thinking that that's maybe what they should be doing as well.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of people in my life starting to realize, hey, whoa, maybe this is not what I really want. And I do want to dedicate myself more to motherhood or being the backbone of my family. And I just think that sometimes this discourse can demonize one side or the other.
Yeah.
And it's actually creating more harm than it is good, even though it is coming from a really, really positive or positively intentioned place.
Yeah.
Right? Because people are out there and they're confused.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because on the whole, and this is a general statement, and I hope that this doesn't get cut up to make me look bad, but generally speaking, men have been the ones that have gone out there and fought the war. They've been on the horse, gone out to battle. Evolutionary and over time, that generally has been the case. And I don't want to get caught up in the whole gender thing, but evolutionarily, men are built different. They are built with more strength. And you put a man and a woman in a boxing match, you're going to get a pretty, obvious outcome because we have differences. And I just think, bottom line, we should all be, we should do a better job of honoring the differences between men and women rather than getting into the debate about toxic this and toxic that.
Yeah.
And I think we should just be mindful that we're putting a lot of pressure on both men and women to be a certain way by trying to project our views of the world onto our large subscriber bases.
Yeah, and that's a dangerous place.
That's a really dangerous place.
It's super dangerous. And I respect the fact that you might have been told, don't touch the topic. And I respect it's a touchy topic, but it's a topic that gets to be addressed. And it's all about just being open-minded. So as an example, my wife and I just had our second daughter. She's 4.5 months old. We have an almost 4-year-old. My wife's job is fucking hard, man. Every night she's up, she sleeps in a separate bed to me. She's tired, she's stressed. She's got help from me, from parents, from a carer as well. And she still finds it super difficult. And for the first 2.5 years, she had this idea that she needs to provide as well, right? So she's got this focus of being a mother, which is fucking hard. And then she's like, I'm not contributing. And I'm like, well, you are. You're doing the most important job on the planet. Now, I don't know if this is what happened with these girls.
Evolutionary.
Yeah.
That evolution says that is the most important job on the planet because if we stop producing offspring, we die out as a human race. So that you can't really argue that nature has told you that is the most important job on the planet.
Of course, and it's biologically, right? Now, but this is the point, is if my wife wants to go and work, fine, but she gets to have that choice. And there is a demonization right now of, stay-at-home mothers, you don't need to do that. Boss babe. Not everyone wants that. So if you want to be a boss babe, great.
I would go as far as saying that, more than 90%, maybe 90% aren't consciously aware that they don't want that. But I think that at least 90% of people out there would be getting this conflicting feeling within them about whether staying home and being a mom. And I hate when people say just a mom before that, because like you said, it's the most important job in the world.
Yeah.
It is. It's like they're confused. There's this tug of war going on. I'm seeing this tug of war going on in the women that I love most in and around the child rearing age. And that hurts, right? It hurts to see. There's a an author out there, and I can't remember her last name. It's Erica something, and she's just published a book called Being There, and maybe you guys can throw it up later. But she talks about those years between 0 and 3 are the most formative years in a child's brain development. And she basically makes the case that it doesn't always have to be the mother, but that bond between child and mother is so extremely important. And a lot of mothers, while they might be there physically and they're present physically, can become emotionally distant and emotionally unavailable because of the things that they've got going on in their lives, because of the workload or the things that they're trying to juggle. And that can have a real formative impact on the child. And you start to see that when the child gets into the ages of 4, 5, and 6, you start to see the tantrums, you start to see the breakdowns and the panic attacks and things like that. And she basically says that the way that society has kind of demonized being a mom is leading more and more women to become emotionally unavailable during those important years. And again, I'm not saying it's the case for all families. There's a bunch of relationships out there where I'm sure that man is doing the best that he can to fill that motherly bond role, that what has evolutionary been a motherly and child bond. But there's some ways that maybe we can't replicate that. I don't know. I don't know enough about the science, but that's a great, for anyone who's kind of watching this and thinking, shit, everyone's making some good points here. I don't know like what to believe. That Erica, the book Being There, I think is a really great start. And I'm starting to see kind of the people in my life see the light at the end of the tunnel on this discussion. And it's actually been them that have been sending me these clips saying, oh my God, Mark, have you seen this? Because I've kind of, not in these words, but been having these conversations with them like, hey, take some pressure off yourself. You don't need to do it all.
If you're getting value from this podcast episode, please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. It allows us to reach more men, to keep more families together, and to give you more value with the guests that we get on board. So please do me a favor, hit subscribe, hit that bell icon so we can give you even more value. Exactly, but social media and these influencers say this is the only way or this is the wrong way, and that's a dangerous mindset.
And it might be the way for them.
Exactly.
But going out there and saying this is how it should be for everybody, or demonizing a 21-year-old male who is just trying to make his way in the world. I don't even think he has a girlfriend, right? Like he's just trying to kind of work it out like everyone else, and to kind of pin this kid up here and say, this is toxic masculinity. Well, what do you think that's going to do to all the other 21-year-old men that are watching? They're going to be like, well, fuck.
Yeah, I want to have a wife that looks after my children. I'm toxic. I'm wrong.
I don't want my girlfriend or my wife to work either if she doesn't have to. But am I being wrong for that?
Am I a bad person?
You just really have to look. And my job is investing. My job is to see the future. My job is to understand the second and third order effects of government policy, of central bank policy, of all these things, and to understand how that's going to affect my investments. So when I see these things happening in the public sphere, I'm always thinking to myself, well, what are the second and third order effects of the things that I'm currently, people are saying? And again, I didn't want to touch this today.
I've got two things on it, and then we'll move on. But
I think it's an important discussion, and like I said, it's really touched close to home for me, and it's.
I'll speak into two things that have come up for me recently around this. So I spoke to a lot of guys the last 2 weeks who have been a stay-at-home dad, who have had the woman wear the pants, have the more masculine role. Whether it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. Fine. Every single one of them has said the same thing. And I've coached 5,000 men. She has had all of the go, go, go leadership. And now she's had enough and she wants a man to provide for her. Every single one. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen to the kick girls. And I remember there was a viral video on Twitter about 1.5 years ago. It was this blonde woman, like your typical beautiful Barbie blonde, right? Whatever you like. And she was putting up videos of like, I look after my husband. I love being a wife. I cook him the meals in the morning. I fold his clothes. I iron his clothes. She supports him. He provides. They live in a log cabin. She's happy as fuck. Every single comment was demonizing her. And it was all women. Like, this, you're a slave. Blah. It's like, guys, if you want to work as a woman, great. If you want to be a stay-at-home mom, great. But there's no hate towards the boss babes, and there's a lot of hate towards the stay-at-home mums or the men who want that. And I think that's a massive problem that has second or third order consequences.
For sure.
You know?
For sure.
So without spending any more time on that, you have been quite successful, I would say. Maybe you wouldn't agree, but you've gone through property, selling, investing. You're an investor now. Can you explain your journey through business, navigating fatherhood, your fiance? What are the struggles that you've had that most modern men can probably relate to in your journey? Give us a bit of an idea as to that.
Yeah, I mean, like high level, I'm sure I've kind of gone through the struggles that most humans deal with. You know, the stress, the anxiety, the thoughts about not being enough, and you know, just trying to understand my place in the world. And you know, we live in a time where there's so much abundance and so much choice that sometimes is almost a rope to hang yourself with, right? Because you don't know what to do next. Because hey, you've been told you can do everything. Sure, you can do anything, but you can't do everything, right? At the same time. So, you know, when I was basically high level, when I was 18, I left university, went to open up a cafe in Richmond, Bridge Road, Richmond in Melbourne. You know, that was like a grind for 18 months of my life. We didn't make any money. I'm like, oh, there's got to be a better way than this. Basically fumbled around, just made ends meet. I was working at like Safeway warehousing and distribution to kind of pay for my overseas holidays. And so did that from like 18 to kind of 22. And I just kind of had like a bit of a breakdown because I'm like, shit, I've tried everything. I'm not really getting anywhere. There's something wrong with me. I don't know what to do. I'm going to go and try and enter the corporate space. So I was about 23, 24, and I met someone at the time who was selling land for Stockland, who was one of the large, I don't know if they're working with Stockland, they're selling land. And I'm like, hey, I could do that. They're like, I'm making 100 grand a year. Back in 2006, that was a lot of money. Inflation means that's probably like 300 grand a year now. And I'm like, hey, shit, like I can do that. If they can do it, I can do it. And within 2 weeks, I had a job at the largest land developer in the country. And I built my way up from a sales associate to sales professional. And within 18 months, I remember the guy that was mentoring me, the best in the country. He's like, you know, he saw that I was starting to follow the things that he was doing. And he's like, yeah, keep following, kid. It'll only take you 20 years to become an overnight success. And then within 18 months, I kind of like beat him in number of sales per year. And I'm like, there you go. Did an 18, bro. Like, thanks.
Amazing.
But yeah, he kind of took me under his wing. And then after about 3-4 years in that, I went out on my own, did property development. And then we got I think it was the 2012 market downturn. And I was like, fuck, we had this development. It was going to be 35 units. We put plans into the council for 35 units. I'd left my job for this. And they didn't like the size and scope of that plan, and Victoria at the time was going through this transition where the blocks were starting to get cut much smaller, and so it wasn't even that ambitious, 35, but the council didn't like it, so they saw this loophole in one of the precinct structure plans where it said that the land budget is recommended to be 500 metres per block, and that only gave us like 11 blocks or something, and we couldn't make the project work on that. And the amount of time that it was going to take to go and fight that would have meant that we would have had to settle on the property, and we didn't have that kind of cash. And so in the end, we kind of scrambled, got it up to 17, negotiated with them, sold it, got out, broke even, didn't lose any money, didn't gain any money, learned a lot of lessons, and for the second time went back to working in a corporate role. So
can I just ask, how'd you navigate that? Because you've made a lot of money. You don't have to share how much, but you've made money, right? Like most high performing men, we often make it, but we either don't keep it or we feel like we're not getting far enough ahead. And then we get hit with adversity. You mentioned before recording sleepless nights, constant stress, grinding. How have you navigated building wealth and all the fucking challenges
Yeah,
that come with
so
it.
the sleepless nights and all that hadn't even come yet. Like the point I'm making with this story is for the second time failing at business.
Yes.
Well, in my mind, failing because we didn't make money. Because business and markets, they don't give a fuck about your feelings, right? You're getting instant feedback. The customer or the thing that you invested in is either going up or it's going down. You're either making money or you're not. And so the feedback at that time was telling me you're not good enough to do this because I wasn't making any money. So I went back, sold land for another 4 years from 2014 to 2019. And so did that and then was building myself back up, it was like, I call it like a high paying apprenticeship. Then 2019 comes, the land estate that I'm selling sells out. I've sold like 3,000 blocks by then. And my Amazon e-commerce business that I'd started with my now fiance had started to kind of pick up momentum. And so then 2020, I decide to leave land again for the third time and really concentrate on the e-commerce business. And at that time, I got hooked on macro and trading. And then after the COVID time, then I was like, cut the rope one more time out on my own. That's when the sleepless nights came. That's when, ironically, for me, the anxiety hit when my fiance was pregnant with my daughter. I was having panic attacks before she was born. I remember 2 weeks before she was born, we had to go to ER because I thought I was having a heart attack, right? And that was a period in my life where the business was kind of working without me. I'd taken the foot off the accelerator. I was waking up. I was getting like 8 hours sleep, waking up late, training, eating whatever I wanted. Like we were eating like steak sandwiches for lunch. And at that point, I'd probably stopped and relaxed. I was like 39 years old. I'd probably stopped and relaxed. And that's when the anxiety and the sleepless nights and everything started hitting me because I had time to kind of just like take it all in. So that's probably counterintuitive. People probably think the anxiety and those sleepless nights come when you're hustling and grinding. But for me, it came when I kind of slowed down.
Well, that's interesting though, because a lot of men that I work with believe once I hit this target, I'll have peace and freedom.
Yeah.
Once I achieve this financial goal, I'll be happy. But the goalposts constantly move and you sacrifice all the happiness on the journey to get there. So like for you, becoming a father, running multiple businesses, growing your wealth, you were the wealthiest you'd been at that point, right?
Yeah.
What do you think causes so many men to break down mentally and physically on this journey to wealth?
I think part of it is mental and part of it is also physiological. So from a physiological point of view, when you're having ice baths, doing saunas, running, when you are producing cortisol in your body, that cortisol is protecting you from illness. That cortisol is like fight or flight, and that cortisol that you're producing is keeping you alive. Now, it might be if you're in that high fight or flight state for a long period of time, that could cause chronic issues down the track. But at that time, that cortisol is keeping you alive and on. And the minute that you stop and you relax, and then all the things that you've kind of pushed down the track start to surface. So your body then has the chance, without that cortisol, because the cortisol is keeping you alive, to kind of like register all the shit that you've been doing, the fucking up of your gut and all the different, throwing out the symbiosis of our bodies happens at that point. Then it's mental as well. So I'd been fighting against not feeling enough, my demons from my childhood, all the shit that kind of made me want to be successful. From most people's purview, I was successful, had a kid on the way. And then I realized, or mentally I realized, you kind of are safe, but your subconscious doesn't feel safe. And all that stimulus that got you to where you are, now that you're kind of safe, you're not running from that saber-toothed tiger of your childhood, that's not going to get you to where you want to go. So it was like at that time, the message my body was telling me is we need to change your software because your software is now outdated. And if we keep running this software, your body's going to reject it and your hardware is going to break down. And so then I had to kind of like rewire my why. And why am I doing this? Why am I going to continue to go out there and try and do this and do that? and that was an 18-month journey of digging into health and trying to cure insomnia, because it got to insomnia and things like that. And I kind of learned about the body and the gut and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but that was.
It seems like for you, most people are struggling and breaking down during. It's when you hit success that you started to break down, right? As an example, when I had my first daughter 4 years ago, I went deep into hustle and grind, which I think you've done the opposite, and we'll get into. I spent 6 months doing what most men do: hustle, grind, no time for the family, didn't even see my daughter. And my wife pulls me aside and she's like, I'm doing this on my own. And then I get angry at her because I'm trying to provide, back to that masculine, feminine. For you, how did having a child, you got a daughter, right? How did that impact the way you operate with your software, and also how you operate in business and life? How did that affect you having that child?
I think the first thing that really threw me is when I had a child, and I realized that, like, it's this, as you would attest to, it's an unexplainable feeling that all of a sudden this person who wasn't there has appeared, and she is the product of you and your partner, and you're like, what the holy fuck? And it's like, at that moment you could not ever conceive putting that child in harm's way. And for me, looking into her eyes, it brought back a lot of the feelings of feeling unsafe that I had from childhood. And at that point, it opened up wounds for me. Like, holy fuck, like, how could one of my parents be the way they were when I was a kid? I could not be that way around my kid because I just don't want to hurt them. And so it opened up a lot of those wounds from childhood, seeing her there, because I'm like, I'd felt let down all over again. And so
what did you do about that?
And then that brought on, and then what that then brought on is, holy shit, like, what would my family do if something happened to me? Holy fuck, like, I cannot think of leaving Dom and Frankie alone. And then the whole midlife fucking, that the man who faces his own death and his immortality. I went through that, and you'll speak to a lot of men that are around 40 probably go through that whole, I'm gonna die one day, and now I have a reason beyond myself to be here, that it's not just when I'm gone, it's not just I'm gone, there's other people that depend on me, like this, and I think it was going through that process. It was kind of like that big realization or awakening.
How'd you navigate that? Because I understand, like, am I enough? What am I going to do? What if I pass away? Who's going to look after her? You can very much get stuck in fear, doubt, uncertainty, 100%. Anxiety.
That's what happened.
How did you navigate that? Because some men are stuck in that place for 18 years.
Yeah. And this is where I think day by day, there has to be a different program. There has to be a different why. It's a slow burn. It's like you have to, I guess, I think the number one thing that I did to kind of get through that was make peace with my dad. And it took me a year after struggling with the anxiety and the sleepless nights and the insomnia to approach him with it. But after I felt like I was starting to get better, I approached him with it and said, hey, I haven't told you this, but this is what I've been going through for the last 12 months. And it kind of erupted and whatever. But then over the period of a week or so, we reconciled. And for the first time ever, instead of saying, oh, but I had it worse and this and that and whatever, he said, you know what? I didn't realize. I'm sorry. And from that moment, I couldn't be bitter or resentful because he finally acknowledged that, hey, it wasn't perfect. I didn't realize, and I'm sorry. And it was like I was able to bury the past and now move forward and take on the future and make my life what I want my life to be about, rather than living the demons from the past. And I think why a lot of people don't ever, because, you'll read the books and you'll speak to the counselors and psychologists and they'll say, like, you don't need your dad's approval. You don't need this. You don't need that. But on some level, that's all we want, to be accepted. And so some people give up too soon with making peace with that other significant person in their life. And they never get it, and that person passes away and it's still always lingering. But I was fortunate enough to maybe resilient enough or to keep pushing it, to get him to kind of see the world from my point of view. And now we have a great relationship. We haven't argued for 3 years or two and a half years. And we used to always bicker. You know, now he comes, stays at my place for a week, and it was like the best week of his life, right? Like, but you know, you gotta want to go deep in the cave and explore those things. And because you're not always going to like what the other person has to say, they might not always be ready to hear what you have to tell them as well. And, you know, maybe over time, the beating the head against the wall allowed him to be ready. But you got to be resilient. You got to want to go in the cave.
Of course. And I would say a lot of men's issues in modern day society are generational. You know, my father was the same. So many clients come to us. You
Women
know,
too.
people, women too. It's like our mother or our father, we've got wounds from our childhood. I'm not enough. I wasn't loved. I need to be better. I need to do more. And we don't realize this shit is coming up in our relationship. It's coming up in our business.
It comes back to the discussion that we started with, right?
Yeah.
Like, you might be a loving parent, but if your child, it's like what actually happened and what the child perceives to have happened, usually they're worlds apart, right? You might be that loving parent or think you're that loving parent, never hit your kids, never abused them. But if you're emotionally unavailable and unable to give them what they needed emotionally, in 20 years, that their perception of what their childhood was like might be completely different to what you as a parent thought it was like. And it comes back to that conversation about really being there for our kids during these formative years is so freaking important.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, I want my child to be independent. I want my child to have self-esteem. Well, the way that you make sure that your child is independent is by them knowing that they can depend on you through thick and thin. It's through dependence, not forcing them to become independent, right? It's that healthy dependence. It's being emotionally available. It's all those things.
And it's something men aren't taught. Like, how do you be emotionally available? How do you empower your children?
No one's taught it.
Exactly, but you have to go into that cave, like you said.
100%.
So I want to get into balance and your idea of wealth in a second, but Frankie was your daughter's name, right?
Yeah.
What has being a father to Frankie taught you about business and life? What are the lessons you've learned that can help some of the men listening? And just consider the guy who's working hard, stressed, trying to make it financially, and they know they're not there for their wife and kids. Like, what have you learned?
So I guess there's two people potentially listening. There's people who don't have kids, and there's people who do have kids. For the people, I was 39 when I had Frankie, and knowing what I know now, I only wish I had her sooner, because children have this way of holding up this mirror, and I don't know how. I can't quite articulate or put into words why, but it's almost like they are the best remedy to healing wounds, because all of a sudden you don't want to pass on and you're going to pass on other things, right? There's going to be other blind spots that you're going to pass on, but all of a sudden you want to be better, not only for yourself, but for them as well. And you want to be a role model. And so I think having Frankie made maybe be more conscious about the way that I speak to my partner, maybe be more conscious about the way that I deal with my business relationships, made me more conscious, because I realized that this sponge was always going to be watching. And so I feel like it's, you know, again, we come back to this choice, right? Like, we've got so much choice. There's so many things we can do. I was 39, had my first kid. 20 years ago, everyone was having their first kids at 23. And so they're forced to grow up much sooner. And so I feel like part of the reason why we're so immature, or we're maturing later, is because having a child is one of the ways that nature has to turning you into a real adult, right? And I'm not saying you're not a real adult if you don't have kids. There's women out there that's choosing not to have kids, fine. I'm not saying that you're not a real adult. You're probably more mature than I am. I'm still a big kid. But it's nature's way of kind of forcing you to grow up, to look after someone who depends on you.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many four-legged animals that come out of the womb and they start running. Whereas humans can't do that, right? Like humans are dependent for quite some time.
Yeah.
And then for the guys who have kids and feel like they're not spending enough time with their kids, or feel like they have to be out there grinding and building, I think I'm fortunate because I did the grinding and building before, and so it has allowed me more time and space to take my foot off the gas a little bit. But it's still, I'm going through a period now where the foot is down on the gas, and my partner is taking the lion's share of the load with Frankie. She does anyway. But I would just say that what you need to ask yourself is adding another zero or adding another business, or when it's all said and done and your child moves out of your house, is that zero, is that thing that you consider wealth really gonna replace the time that was missed with that kid, right? Like me and Dom have got this thing, and I'm so lucky that Dom is like this, but if we went out and we invested and lost our last dollar, Dom would be like, it's okay, we'll go live with one of our parents. We will make do. Dom will travel and go on an adventure on her last dollar. And that's why I love her, right? It's that energy that I love. And she has always given me permission to fail, or always given me permission not to push as hard, or always given me permission to do what I want to do as long as I'm happy. Right?
What would you say to a man who doesn't have that? Because that's such a beautiful thing you have in your relationship.
Yeah, well, you got to start there, right? And because I know that that would be a really common thing, that the wife might be saying things like, I want you to be there more for the family, but then on the same token of saying, I really want that holiday to Europe, and that 3-month trip around Europe. And so sometimes our partners are sending us mixed messages because they want them to be home, and then they also want that 3-month trip around Europe. And that's putting pressure on the man because he's trying to do it all, going back to everyone trying to do it all, right? Like that's the thing that we're all facing. We're trying to do so much because of what we see on social media, because of what we see everyone else doing.
Yeah.
And I think you really just have to have those conversations with your partner, and it doesn't get solved instantly. Like sometimes it's a bit of toing and froing to get to that point where there's support on both ends. Don't expect it immediately. But if you've been trying and trying and trying year after year and you're not finding that support, well, then maybe it's time to kind of seek external help.
Yes.
To have someone to try and mediate those discussions, because the way that men see the world and the way that women see the world are very different. And so maybe the gap just needs to be bridged a little bit there.
If you want to actually take this framework that I shared and apply it to your life, it's part of our Empowered Man Armory and our app that we've spent almost 250 grand on. If you want access to a powerful system where you can use this reframe system I just shared with you every single day, then find me on Instagram at Tony Empowered Man. TonyEmpoweredman. I'll put the link down below as well. Send me a DM saying reframe, and I'll give you this exact framework as well as early access to the Empowered Man app when it launches. That's a great frame. My marriage was falling apart until I learned some of these lessons. I was grinding to provide for my family the last 8 years, and I turned my business off 4 months ago, cut my revenue down by 75%. Wow. And the reason I did that, I had my second daughter, but I said to my wife, I'm like, I can be around more, but we're not going to have the same life. We're going to have less money, less success. And she really sat with that for 2 or 3 days. And then she pulled me aside one night and she said, I think that's what I want. I don't think we need more stuff. I don't think we need more things or holidays. I want you. And I'll tell you what, man, anyone listening right now who can relate to this, it's almost like I had to kill off a part of myself, because I've built this identity of grinding, stress, I need to provide, I need the next property, and it's never enough, man. And I had to really sit with myself and be like, am I okay with just doing the bare minimum and removing stuff? You talked about that earlier, we'll get into it. And for anyone listening right now, I know it's hard when you've got bills to pay, mortgages, children, but really just sit with yourself and say, what do I actually want? What am I building? And it's been the most liberating thing ever, man. It's so powerful.
My question to you would be, how did you get there?
Yeah.
Because it sometimes takes people a lifetime
Yeah.
to kind of get to that realization that I am enough, even if I'm not out there speaking to 1,000 people. And like, how did you get there?
Great question. I had this conversation with Adam Hudson, who you and I both know very well. And he said, for 33, how do you know all this stuff?
Yeah,
because I've spent
exactly.
Well, I've spent 8 years not knowing it, right? So drinking every night to deal with stress, chronic stress, man, panic attacks, couldn't leave the house, depression, almost divorced. Like, how many years of pain must you go through before you look in the mirror and go, enough is enough? So a month before my second daughter was born, I'm sitting there, I'm stressed as fuck. I journal every day. My journal's like, fuck everything, fuck everyone, this is fucked.
That's a
sign. Then I look at all my journals from the last 8 years, the same shit. So I just sat with myself, and it wasn't overnight. It took 8 years to make the decision. I'm like, dude, how many messages do I need? Is it going to be a heart attack? Is it going to be a cancer? But it is hard, because anyone listening right now, they're like, yeah, I want freedom and peace, but how do I have wealth while also having balance, right? So I guess the question I want to ask you is, what is your definition, now that you have Frankie and you got Dom, right, and you got your businesses, what is your definition of wealth and success now compared to before? Like, how would you define
I've thought about this a lot,
Yeah.
and it's got nothing to do with money.
Okay.
My definition of wealth and success is being able to wake up each and every day and choose how to spend my day. I'm, in the grand scheme of things, only going to be on this earth a very, very short amount of time compared to how long we've all been here. And I'm almost so insignificant to the plight of the universe. But to me, that's all I have. Those 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years, hopefully, right? That's all I have. And so success and wealth for me is each day being able to wake up and decide how I'm going to spend my day. And sometimes I don't get to choose. Like, this week is a week that I'm jam-packed. I'm doing a bunch of podcasts. I've got deadlines I need to meet for my business, trying to trade the markets. It's a week where I'm not really getting to choose. And though having those weeks is okay as well, you can't have it every day, but more days than not, I want to be able to wake up and decide how to choose my days. Now, people will say, okay, well, you've obviously got enough money to do that, or you've built enough money to do that. Sure. But if I didn't have enough money to live where I'm living or whatever, I would downsize to the point, or go and live with family for 6 months or whatever, so I can have those choices, right? There's many ways to live next to the ocean. There's many ways to kind of do these things if you think outside the box, right? Scaling back, I found, is always the best way to kind of feel more wealthy, right? The more, like you said it earlier, the more that you gain, the more that you try and gain. It's like human nature. We're there to try and cross that bridge and climb that mountain. It's just in our DNA. Yeah. So yeah, I would say that is true success.
The disease of more, right?
Yeah. The dopamine of more, right? It's a chemical reaction.
Yeah. There's a powerful word that's shown up a lot recently, and it's detachment. So it's like, I want more. I'm about to buy more property, build wealth. I don't need it. And it's like, when you're in that constant should or need, there's so much stress attached to it, where it's like, I want it, but I don't need it. If I get it or not, all good. It sounds silly, but most people don't know what that feels like.
It's like it's the Buddhist philosophy, right? Yeah. Like, it's like desire without attachment. It's like, it's great to desire things, but if you desire things to the point where your emotions ride on having or not having that thing, then that thing owns you. You don't own that thing.
So powerful.
Right? And that's not and it's taken me 41 years to kind of be able to get to a place where, like, I just started a podcast, my own finance podcast, and people are telling me that you got to do this and you got to do that, and the algorithm this and the algorithm that. I'm like, no, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. Sure, the algorithm wants me to do that, but I didn't start the podcast for money. I didn't start it as a business venture. I started it to be an expression of what I feel like the world needs and what I'm passionate about. And so if it gets to the point where I'm become a slave to the algorithm, then I've forgotten all the lessons I've just spoken about now, right?
You mentioned something just before the podcast around removing things is wealth, right? So you did an exercise at the beginning of this year where, instead of going, what am I going to achieve and what are my goals, you actually did something radically different. Can you explain how that works? And
So 2023 was that year of like crazy. Frankie came along, stress, anxiety, whatever. And at the end of 2023, so the start of 2024, where I would consider myself financially wealthy and successful, I kind of looked at everything in my life, and instead of making a list of what I wanted to achieve or the goals or the outcomes or desires that I had, I made my whole Christmas planning was about what do I want to remove? What do I want to remove from my life on the daily? Who do I want to remove from my life? What things am I in but not passionate about? And I made this big list of things that I wanted to remove. And over the next 12 months, I started to remove those things because some of them you can't remove immediately. And I feel like that's been, I feel like today, for the first time, I'm waking up more days than not doing what I want to do, right? Macro and trading and investing and researching. And that's because I created space for it with that list, having that's the whole less is more, but having that real hard look at my life and be willing to kind of take things away. And it's awesome because, you know, Dom's doing that at the moment. Hers looks a little bit different to mine, but she's taking away all the things that she thought she wanted and needed. And it's amazing to see all this space that she's creating for being a mother and being a wife and being human, and like seeing her start to blossom as she takes away some of the pressure of those things has been incredible. So yeah, one thing that I couldn't recommend highly enough when it's time to sit down and do the goals, because what you go to the seminars and what do they say? Like, write your goals, do your dream board, put this shit on the wall, right? But it's like sometimes it's like taking away can get you more, right?
How does that feel for you, having that space?
Light.
Yeah.
Yeah, light. Feels good. It feels like I'm walking my talk, right?
Yeah.
That I'm not, you know, because there's so many people out there in this space that are saying, do this and do that. And inside they're turmoil. Their lives are turmoil. Their relationships are turmoil. And it's like, well, why are you advocating for people to do these things if your life is turmoil? And so if anyone comes to me with advice and says, what should I do? I start with that. What can you take away?
Yeah.
What do you have in your life currently that you don't need or isn't serving you? Start there, get rid of that.
It's so hard because social media pushes all the stuff like Lamborghinis, big businesses, boss babes, but it's not about what do I want to own. It's like, what life do I want to be living?
What feeling do I want to be feeling
each and every day? Yeah.
Right. For me, it's the feeling is more important than being on the holiday or being on the beach or being like, these are all material things, right? Like if I'm on the beach or in the city or whatever, it's like, how do I want to be feeling each and every day? And, you know, a lot of people, that's like going into the cave, right? Because when we start talking about feelings and wishy-washy things like that, people are like, you know, I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm a man. I don't have feelings. Like, what the fuck, right? But, you know, I think that's important.
It's so important. And it's not something we make time for. I think a lot of men sacrifice what they really want in the pursuit of what they think they want.
Yeah.
So it's like, I want these things, so I'll sacrifice my family, my health, my happiness, my hobbies. I don't see any friends. And then 10 years go by and you're like, fuck, the ladder was on the wrong wall.
Yeah, and that's why you get the thing and then you have the fucking anxiety because you're like, oh my God, I wasted 10 years. Like, what the fuck?
And I got to pay for all this stuff, right?
Yeah, nothing comes free.
No, and a mentor of mine says, what price are you willing to pay? So there's nothing wrong with wanting the nice house and nice car, but just understand the price you're paying.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
Now, we've talked about fatherhood, balance, all that sort of stuff, but I want to talk about wealth because at your heart, you are an investor. And I don't know if you are happy to share some of the numbers of what you've done, but whether we like to admit it or not, money is important. Okay? It's paper energy. You need enough to get by, right? What's the problem with society in this day and age? Where are we going when it comes to money? Because it feels like it's getting way fucking harder to get ahead. Talk to me about that.
Well, I mean,
can of worms.
No, I have mixed feelings on that, right? Because the news or social media or wherever you want to tune in will have you believe that it's a lot harder to get ahead. But we live in the most abundant time in history. There's more money in circulation sloshing around than ever before. Now, albeit admittedly, a lot more of that money is concentrated in fewer hands. So the disparity between rich and poor is growing wider, and that's not a good thing. But if you look around at the lifestyle that you live, you have so many more things than what your grandparents have. Like we get fucking Uber Eats delivered to our door, right? Like the quality of life has never been as good as it is now. I think the issue is the way that it's being framed, that you're seeing every other uber wealthy person in the world, whereas 40 years ago, you didn't have access to seeing the Rockefellers and all these people that were uber rich. They were still there, you just couldn't see them. And so now, today, you can see it. But I think there's a bit of a, it's like the pie fallacy. It's like that there's less of the pie to go around. Well, it's not true. There's more of the pie than ever before to go around. You've just got to be willing to tune out into the propaganda that's telling you that it's the hardest time to get ahead and tune in to the opportunities in front of you, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at the world and say, well, and so many people do this because it's all over our fucking news and it's Australia's favourite pastime, and the thing that the news wants to talk about most when it comes to money is property. Yeah. If you look at how much your parents paid for a property versus the cost and the effort to get into property today, well, you're going to say, well, we're fucked. Like we don't have as much opportunity as what our parents did to get into property. And that's true. That's true. But there's also a bunch of different things out there to invest in that our parents didn't have. If you, instead of buying property 5 years ago, bought Bitcoin, you'd be up about 50x or something, right? Or whatever, however many percent it's gone up. It was like $1,000 in $1,000 in 2017. 2025, 8 years later, it's $100,000. Yeah. So you'd be up 100x if you put your house deposit into Bitcoin instead of putting it into a house. So it's a fallacy that it's harder. It's just the rules of the game are changing. And if you're continuing to play by the rules that the boomers grew up with, then you're not going to win because those rules are stacked in their favor. So you need to enter the new game. And there's, look at tech companies. Look at Palantir, for example, is a tech company. I'm not saying it's not financial advice. I'm not saying go out and buy it, but it's a tech company that's gone up 500% in 1 year. Well, there's a lot of retail buyers that got in at like $6, $7. And I know a heap of them because they were willing to look where other people weren't looking. We're going through a monetary shift. From 1981 to 2020, interest rates went from like 17% down to 0. In that environment, it makes sense that property prices would continue to go up because as the cost to service property comes down and most properties bought on leverage, property prices go up. But if we're moving into an environment from 2020 to 2030 where interest rates are going to go up, will property go up? My thought, I'm not going to get into it today. I think yes, property will on a nominal basis go up, but versus gold, but versus Bitcoin, but versus tech companies that are creating productive technology that's going to change the world, probably going to get killed. And so what are you doing? Are you sitting at home looking at the fact that you can't afford property? Or are you out there trying to work out where the world is going and being there? It has never been cheaper to educate yourself on these things. It's free. It's free. It requires
an investment of time. Because I'm just trying to think of the guy listening who's like...
But so does going out there and trying to build a house deposit. Yeah. It's 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and you can't keep up with inflation and money printing. So 5 years down the track, when your deposit is 50 to 100, the house is going to cost double, and it's not going to be enough. You're going to need 200. So we're all out there spending, 38 hours a week or whatever it is a year, and spending all this time a year working.
It's 2,000 hours a year.
2,000 hours a year working, but we're not willing to spend 200 hours working out how to store our time and energy. Money is time and energy in abstract form. So why not spend a little bit of time working out how to store that time and energy effectively so you can get ahead?
I love that. So men are motivated by pain. We sort of have to wait for rock bottom to change. So paint the picture for me. Let's say you're listening to this, you have no balance, your relationship with your kids isn't as connected. You want freedom, right? What is going to happen to your dollar, your money, if you don't learn these things? I don't want you to be alarmist, but I do also want you to be realistic with inflation. Like, how fucked are we?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to project it for you. Tell me, I can just tell you to go and do this experiment.
Sure.
If you smoke, if you drink, if you eat beef, if you bought a car, a used car, if you've bought a house or live in a property, even if you rent it, go out there and all the things that are most prevalent in your life, go out there and see what they cost today, 2025. Then go and do a little bit of research, and with ChatGPT now, you can do it in like 5 minutes, and go and work out what all these things cost in 2019. And then in the comments, come back to me and tell me if you find anything that hasn't gone up double. What does that mean? That means if you had $100,000 in the bank in 2019 and you've got $100,000 in the bank today in 2025 and everything has doubled in price, effectively the money that you got in the bank is halved in value. That is going to keep happening because we're not having as many more kids. There's not as many people going into the workforce. Less people into the workforce means productivity comes down. And in order to make up that shortfall, governments have to print the difference or pump up asset prices. Otherwise, the debt that they keep putting out there into the system feeds on itself and there's a default. And they don't want that. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to inflate our way out of the debt. And the things that are going to be inflated most are the things that everyone talks about: assets, houses, shares, and things like gold and Bitcoin.
So basically, investing used to be an optional thing. Now it is a necessity.
What is money and how do I store my money effectively, given the regime that we're going into, might be the most important question of our lifetimes. But Mark, money isn't everything. But Mark, why you focus so much on money? Well, go down the street and try and get on without it. See if anyone's willing to barter with you. Mm-hmm. It's impossible to ignore. Now, I do agree that if your relationship with money stinks, then the topic of money is going to cause you a lot of pain. And growing up in a household where we didn't have much and money was always the source of all the pain and suffering, my relationship with money sucked. And I had to go out there and I had to change that, to reprogram that. Now people say, the two things not to talk about are money and politics. That's pretty much what everyone's talking about today, right? So you can't avoid it. So if your relationship with money sucks, or if you're watching this thinking, no, explore that. Explore where that's coming from, because money is important.
Mm-hmm. So someone listening right now, they want to understand money. It's the most important question of our lifetime. Where do we start? How do we start this journey?
Great question. I've been, since 2019, 18, been watching all these macro podcasts. Probably spent about 70% of my working time researching, watching podcasts.
And can you just explain macro for anyone who's not?
Yeah, macro in my mind is a confluence of three things. It's growth and inflation. Is growth and inflation, are we growing? Are we deflating? Mm-hmm. Or is inflation going up or down? And it's government policy, and then it's geopolitics, and it's all these things. It's
what's happening externally.
How did all these things connect together? And the one thing that kind of meshes and connects all these things that are happening globally together is money. Okay. Right? There's another signpost. Right? And so it's understanding the flow of capital and doing all these things. And, I've been thinking about starting a podcast for a long time, and I haven't done it because I always thought to myself, well, I wouldn't listen to me. I want to listen to like these masters of the universe. I wouldn't listen to me. So why should I start a podcast? And then I realized that everyone was asking me the same questions, and I was repeating myself over and over again. And I thought, well, I'll just start a podcast. And so I started a podcast, and I talk about some of these things that we're discussing today. But, whether it's a podcast, whether it's ChatGPT, I think ChatGPT is an awesome way to teach yourself any topic. You have to start getting educated. You have to start grabbing transcripts like this. We've talked about a few meaty topics with relation to money. Grab this section of the podcast, this transcript, put it into ChatGPT and say, what the fuck are these guys talking about? What is Mark talking about? Explain it to me like I'm 5. What do I need to know here in order to protect my family's capital, to get freedom, to live the life that I want? I want you to tutor me each and every day. Like, the tools are at your disposal to learn about these. My grandparents didn't have these tools. My parents didn't have these tools. It's
insane. Like you said, we live in the most abundant time ever. But I know for a fact, because you see it on your podcast, I see it on mine, there are so many victims who go, yeah, but Mark, you've already got money. Yeah, but I can learn about it, but I don't have money to invest. Now, you shared the pain of what will happen if you don't do it. You pretty much get left behind financially. Do you mind sharing some of the deals you've done? Because I know you've spoken on Unemployable. Yeah. Like, I think you've made from like 100 grand, $1 million, or from 50 grand, yeah. 5. So like, people think you need a lot of money. You can turn 10 grand into 100 grand sometimes.
So in relation to the yeah, but crew, yeah. I was watching Huberman recently, yeah. And he said, a friend of mine, and I'm not going to say who it is, but I think it was David Goggins, says to me, and I believe that a lot of things in life, most things in life are grey and nuanced. But he said, this friend said that it's black and white. This is black and white, and I actually feel comfort and calm in my belief that this thing is black and white. He said, there's two types of people in this world. There's losers, and there's winners. The losers have problems, have all these things happen to them, and they point the finger and they say, yeah, but, and they make excuses for why these things are happening to them. The winners, on the other hand, have these exact same things happening to them that suck balls, that cause pain, and they take those things, those cards and those things that are happening to them, and they turn them into a positive. And they transmute their life into something better through the shit that gets thrown at them. And that's the one thing that I take comfort in knowing is black and white, and maybe men are men and women are women, but hey.
How dare we say such a thing?
No, I'm only joking.
Controversial. But
and in relation to the deals, and I spoke about this deal on the second episode of my podcast, I trade options, and basically, I'm not going to bore everyone with the details, but basically I took 10 grand USD and I bought call options. So Google it if you don't know what it is, put it in ChatGPT. I bought call options expiring in January 2026, strike price of $450, and the price at the time was like $249. Tesla was $249. Now it's like $350 or something, right? Those call options that I bought for $10,000 are now worth $36,000. So they've gone up, or maybe $40,000 after today. So they've gone up like 300% in 3 weeks. So I've turned $10,000 into $40,000. I've made $30,000 US in 3 weeks trading options. That knowledge is available to everyone.
That's wild.
Those tools are available to everyone. They're not restricted.
Yeah, and I think for the What If crew, you're right. Losers will find excuses. But it's so easy to go, yeah, but I don't have time. Dude, you've got to make the time. You got to make the time to learn about wealth and how money works.
What can you just keep it simple. What can you subtract from your life that is going to create some time and space, whether it be for your family, whether it be if these things are important to you, making an extra 30 grand or creating personal freedom or whatever. At the end of the day, people will do what's important to them. If it's not important to them, they won't do it. And so that's where the honest, and this is why I think your podcast and what you were doing with men is so important, because it forces people to go into the cave and ask these hard questions. And sometimes they take time. Sometimes they take 8 years or 40 years to come up with the answers, but don't give up, keep doing it. And eventually the questions get answered if you keep asking them.
Yeah, I think there's a really good point around time. People don't actually know the figure, but there's 10,080 minutes in a week. It's a lot of minutes, right? Now, anyone listening right now who says they don't have enough time, pull out your fucking phone right now and pull up the screen time. Seriously, like you have time. You just don't fucking use it wisely. So let's say you take 30 minutes a day. What's that? 30 times 5 is what? My math has lost me right now. It's 90, 120, 150 minutes a week, right? And 2 hours, 2.5 hours, okay? Out of that 10,080 minutes, you've still got like 9,900 minutes. Bro, you got time, right?
Yeah, and don't want it all at once, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to learn what I learned to do that trade in 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
It might take time, might take some failures, but hey, like what are we doing here? Like what is it that you're willing, choose your suffering as well. Like what is it that we're willing to suffer for? What do we want to learn? What do we want to do? How do we want to spend our time? If that why is strong enough, then you'll do it. Eric, who you know on the Unemployable podcast, successful as fuck, said exactly the same thing about screen time, and he pulled out his screen time on the pod that's dropping tomorrow, and he said social media 2.5 hours. He's like 2.5 hours, and I'm grinding, and I'm out there saying I don't have time, and we're like whoa. And Adam's like, thanks for sharing that, right? It doesn't matter where you are. No one is spending every minute of the day efficiently.
Yeah.
And so time's like we all have the same amount of hours. It's just like some have gotten better at what to spend it on, right? Like that's freedom, that's wealth, is being able to choose what you spend that time on. And I get it, right? Like I don't want to just be like out there bashing everyone. Like some people are like struggling to pay the bills, struggling to pay the mortgage, they're about to get evicted, or they owe people money, or something's going on that makes them feel like they're really like I haven't gone to the gym in 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, because And I said to Dom, I don't have time. And she says, is that true?
Good wife. That's
She said, she says, that true? And I'm like, and I sat on the beach while they were playing and I just thought about it. And I'm like, nah, it's not true. I've been living in the gap.
Yeah.
I've been living in the gap and I haven't been motivated to go to the gym.
What do you mean by living in the gap?
Well, I'm thinking about all the things that I have on and the places that I need to go, I need to be, that I'm telling myself I don't have time. I'm not looking at what I've got or what I've done. And, you know, the simple reality is what I realize is by putting this unnecessary pressure on myself and living in that lack scarcity mentality, that I couldn't get motivated to go to the gym, that I was demotivating myself to go, right? And so a lot of it, sometimes we demotivate ourselves to do these things because we're like, I'm already fucked. I'm already working 80 hours a week. I'm already doing this, right? And it's like,
yeah. What's interesting about that is
easy in principle, but sometimes harder to practice.
Yeah. One thing we teach our guys, and I live by because I know if I don't, I'm fucked, right? Is we often prioritize wealth before everything else. And I believe that going to the gym, starting my morning routine, doing my evening reflection, those things come first. Now it's my family after that. So me first, my mindset and my body, then my family, then my business. Most people have that completely the other way around. Business first, then family, then self. What would you say to somebody who's stuck in that cycle?
Yeah, and then sometimes people have family first and they're sacrificing themselves for their family.
Most men.
And they don't realize,
Bottom of the barrel, bro. Like we go to bottom of the barrel.
And that's an interesting point. That helplessness where you're kind of sacrificing yourself from your family and you're probably hitting your head up against a brick wall anyway, because you can't fix anyone. They have to go on their own journey and you're letting yourself slide while you do it. It's probably the worst place for a man to be. That is where the stress and the depression and everything comes from, because men don't like to be helpless, right? And so if that's you, then I would definitely take your advice and try and put yourself first. If you're putting your business first, it's black and white. Like I've said to Dom, until the end of May, we've got a lot of things going on. I'm gonna be away. I work from home, but I'm gonna be away from the house often. And I'm not going to be there for every bath and for every meal, and I'm going to do my best. But you got to have my back, because it's going to be crazy until the end of May. But if you're constantly living in that state, I would say you need to ask yourself: why are you working, right? Like, is it an ego thing? Are you working for you, or are you working? Because the men will say, I'm working for my family, bro. Of course. But if you're not there for them, you know, what damage is that doing to them? Is it over a small period of time, or is it over a long period of time? You know, your business is like a rubber ball. I heard this in the book, The One Thing. I love this analogy. It's like your business and your stock portfolio and your property portfolio. It's a rubber ball. You drop it, you might drop it, but it bounces back. But your family and the humans in your life, they're a glass ball. You drop them, they break. You can't put those back together. And so, you know, treat the family and yourself as that glass ball, because your health is a glass ball as well. That's one I fear that most people are treating like a rubber ball, and they're just grinding themselves into the ground, or even deflection is just as bad as driving yourself into the ground. Like going out and boozing with the boys every week, or playing video games nonstop to kind of drown out your problems. That's just as bad as grinding in a way, right?
Yeah, we call it suppression and sedation.
Yeah.
We suppress our emotions. We don't actually deal with the shit going on, and we sedate. And it's even with screens. Right?
Yeah.
Like long day, I'll give myself permission to just scroll. It's like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, what have I watched? Like cat videos? You know, who gives a fuck? I want to touch on a few final things. So you mentioned earlier changing your relationship with money. So how does somebody who has a shitty relationship with money, they make it and they spend it all, they can't save it, they feel like it doesn't grow on trees. How do we start changing our relationship with money to build true wealth and abundance? What would you recommend?
I think, and you said one of them there, right? Like money doesn't go on trees, right? A lot of the way we feel about money isn't our own feelings. It was handed down to us by our parents, right? Naturally, they were the ones that raised us through those formative years when our brains were developing. And so a lot of the things that we think about money it wasn't our software. It was given to us. And I think the first step is to kind of identify what are those global beliefs that you have about money that have been given to you by parents or aunties, uncles, whoever it was that was looking after you, main caregiver. And money growing trees, it's a very common one, right? And so the first part of that is to work out, okay, what are those beliefs? And then we've spoken about how important money is, right? And whether we like it or not, we all have egos, and how much of your self-worth is tied to the amount of money that you've got, right? Because that was my issue, right? Like, money was scarce, so I was living in a scarcity mindset, not an abundance mindset. So that was one of my problems. And I was tying my net wealth or my ability to be the best land salesperson in the world to my ego, to my value, to my self-worth. So it was a deconstructing of how much I had, because when there's always going to be someone that has more than you. And so if that's your barometer, you're always going to be a shrimp to someone else. And so it's, you have to, in essence, and as I was coming up, it was like always looking at what other people were doing, like running building companies and this and that, and go, should I be doing that? Should I be doing that? And it took me a long time, I would say, to like, only in the last couple of years, I think I've been able to kind of say, you know what, whoa, all that glitters isn't gold. That's that person's path. I define wealth differently. You just keep doing your thing. And the longer that you can deconstruct your thoughts about money and start to pull apart your self-worth from how much money that you've got, and stop focusing on what other people are doing to earn money, right? Like, I listen to all the macro, I listen to all the podcasts, but I don't follow anyone's money-making strategy. And the reason I don't is because money is so emotional. Fear, greed, childhood, everything is tied up in it. And I don't want to do something that someone is doing because it's the system that they've built that's right for them. I want to use it in my way to augment my life, because it's just a tool to augment life, to buy more time, to buy more freedom, to buy the things that are most important. So I kind of take what I learn and then I work out, okay, then how should I use my money to make me feel good about my life, or to make me live a life with more freedom or more abundance. And so I don't know if to answer your question.
That's
that
a very powerful frame.
Of pulling that all apart.
It's such a powerful frame. Most successful men tied their success to net worth and how much they make.
Yeah.
What a lot of men don't realize is that you can actually build a lot of wealth while having peace, build a lot of wealth while having balance, build a lot of wealth while having freedom. And it's so easy to say that, but to live and breathe it, it's almost like you get to build an identity of abundance and I'm enough. Because it's not, do I have enough? It's, am I enough? Right?
Yeah.
Like when I'm enough, money comes. And when you're trying to like, I need it. You're like fucking repelling it, bro. It's like a magnet just pushing it away.
Yeah.
And what I see in you, and this is just an assumption, but what I perceive is that you've sort of cracked a bit of a code where you have fatherhood, you have your fiance, you have your businesses, and you have all these things lined up. And sure, sometimes there's more in wealth, but you always come back to what's important, which is family and freedom. Is that correct?
100%. That's my north. That's my North Star. They're my guiding lights. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So to finish up, for anyone listening right now who craves that, I think most men, if they really slow the fuck down, they crave freedom and family, but they're just stuck in that cycle. What is one or two pieces of advice you'd say to that guy to get out of that cycle of more, and to create the life they actually fucking want?
I think beyond a shadow of a doubt, one of the most profound things that I have had the fortune of experiencing is moving up to the GC, or moving up to Byron, and coming on and out of my comfort zone and doing the podcast with the Unemployable Boys.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the program that was given to you can be good, can be useful, but it's not going to get you to where you want to go. And so I think the best thing that one can do if they're stuck in that loop is to change their environment.
Yeah.
And you might say, oh, fuck, well, like, I'm going to leave my family. Or maybe it doesn't require you leaving your family. These days you can find these communities online. Social media gets a bad rap, but what else has connected so many like-minded people?
That's how I met you guys.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Now we have a choice. We're not trees. We have a choice to kind of get up, or virtually get up and go put ourselves into a different circle.
Yeah.
You are the average of the 7 people you hang around, whether it be what they're worth, how they're living, the peace that they've got in their lives. And so I would say kind of look out there, choose your role models carefully, cull your feed and your friendship group often, and think for yourself about what you really want, and try and put yourself in circles that are going to be more positive for you without sounding wooey and wishy-washy. We are like plants, and we do flourish when we're in the right soil. So
I love that.
Try and find that right soil.
That's so powerful, man. Where can we find more about your finance podcast, all that sort of stuff? Where can people find you?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for the plug. So my Insta is at Mark DiPaola. So you guys can throw it up, or it's MARK.
We'll put it down below as well.
Yep.
And you can
MARKDIPAOLA. And the podcast that I just started, we're only like 5th episode's about to drop on Saturday. It's called Money, Markets, and Mayhem. If you just type into YouTube, Money, Markets, Mayhem, without any spaces, you should see the colorful blue and red M logo with looks like kind of candles. And give us a subscribe there and reach out to me on Insta.
Amazing. So guys, if you've got any value from this, please go and follow Mark on Insta. Send him a direct message with your biggest takeaway. We're going to drop the links down below, and subscribe to the podcast. A lot of our clients listen to this podcast and they're very interested in money and they don't know what the fuck they're doing. So I think we're all figuring it out.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much for driving up here, brother. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Have an amazing day.
Good chat.
If you want to actually take this framework that I shared and apply it to your life, it's part of our Empowered Man Armory and our app that we've spent almost 250 grand on. If you want access to a powerful system where you can use this reframe system I just shared with you every single day, then find me on Instagram at Tony Empowered Man, TONIEMPOWEREDMAN. I'll put the link down below as well. Send me a DM saying reframe, and I'll give you this exact framework as well as early access to the Empowered Man app when it launches.